Welcome back to the Resolution Room. This is a space where we slow down the moment before reaction and take a closer look at what's really driving conflict beneath the surface. Each episode invites you into conversations that challenge assumptions, expand perspective, and offer practical ways to move through tension with more clarity and intention. Whether you're navigating conflict in your relationships, your work, or within yourself, you're in the right place. Let's step into the room. Today's conversation is about migration, identity, silence, and expression, and what happens when someone finds their voice after years of feeling unseen. I'm joined by Noc Beteck, a Cameroonian-born artist, father, and community leader whose journey from Cameroon to the U.S. at age 8 reshaped how he saw himself and ultimately how he learned to speak through music. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes. I'm a Noc Beteck. That's actually my real name. Artist name is Noc Beteck, and the Noc comes from when I was in middle school. We were going on a field trip, and one of my friends' mom, she was a chaperone for us, and she couldn't pronounce my name, so she kept saying Enoch, Enoch. You know what? I'm just gonna call you Knock. I'm just gonna call you Little Knock Knock. so that's how Knock, the name Knock became about. So yes, I was born in Cameroon, Africa. Moved here when I was 8 years old, and completely two different types of lifestyle. In Cameroon, I was more outspoken. I was the leader of my little friends. I was the kid that all the little girls had crushes on. Everybody wanted to be friends with.
Of
I
course.
was welcome everywhere. Then coming over here in Cameroon, to the United States, um, it was a quick turnaround because now I'm the kid that nobody really wants to be around. I'm getting pushed away. I'm getting made fun of. So complete different lifestyles. And again, in Cameroon, I grew up always having like a maid or a butler, and then coming here to the States, it's 10 of us and a 2-bedroom apartment. Yeah. So
And what part of the U.S. did you first come to?
we landed in Brooklyn, and then my uncle and my brother came and picked us up and took us back to Salisbury to where they stayed at.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as the lifestyle change, so again, you were very much more well off in Cameroon versus
Yeah.
here. Did anything change as far as like what your parents did for work, or just the cost of living changed, or just how much they were getting paid for that same work changed?
Yeah. So my mom she actually stayed in America. My dad was more so like just back and forth. So because of the position that he held back in Cameroon, he was a CEO of a company, as well as he held a high ranking in, just in society, period. Whereas my mom, she was a teacher back home in Cameroon, and then coming over here, even she herself, she pretty much had to start all over again. And went to school, got a degree, and then had to get a job, and then move us out of my uncle's living with my uncle and aunt to us getting our own place.
And I've heard this several times for other friends I have who came from like Nigeria,
Mhm.
especially, and Kenya, where like they were already lawyers and had PhDs there and then had to come here and basically redo the same credentials
Yeah.
and start from scratch. So if you're already established, what is it about the US that would make you drop all of that and come here to start over?
Now, I would say from my perspective of what I've learned over the years, it's just the opportunity for you to, one, be successful and just have a living, have life. Because I have family in Cameroon who went through a lot of tragic and awful things and lost a lot of families. And I've come to realize, that was like probably the biggest reason why our parents did not want us, staying back home, and they actually wanted us, to give us a chance to live, So everything that's going on in my country now is like, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I see why we had,
Yeah.
because sometimes it's better for you to just have your life than, risk losing it based on other things that's going on. So
Yeah, can we actually go a little deeper here? Just because, I mean, there's a lot of people who've never been to Cameroon. They probably couldn't even point it out on a map. It's just, to put into perspective for people. Because again, when you hear someone who, a lot of times success, what that looks like in the United States is having the title and having butlers and all these things for
yeah.
you. So again, that sounds like more like the dream that you had before coming here and losing it. So in comparison, and coming to the US from certain places, people are off put by the gun violence and the homelessness populations. Like
Yeah.
these are not things people take into consideration before coming here. And so for that to
Mhm.
still all be better than what you had in Cameroon, can you talk a little bit more about what's happening in Cameroon that we don't know or see that would still make you do that?
So pretty much I'll say it's like there's like a quote unquote like a civil war going on, and then there's like a lot of like government corruption, and it's like even going to the grocery store, going to the market is not safe. Like here, you can say, "Oh, I want to go to the grocery store," but you're not thinking that, "Oh, I have to go through there's going to be this group of people that is in this area that I might have to like fight off or face or even get captured and all this other stuff." You're not thinking about that, but in Cameroon, you have to think about that. That's something that that you have to really put in your mind within yourself and say, okay, I need food for the house, and I know what is going, what I mean, what I put most likely going to have to face in order to go get that food and then make it back home safe, because all the things that's going around, that's happening, all the minor battles and shootouts that are happening all around you, and I mean, here is completely different. I mean, you're not really worried about having to come up against some type of like military group or organization that is going to really affect your life, your daily living. Stuff like that. You only think about it like politics. It only happened in politics. Back in Cameroon, like it ain't just politics. Like you're involved in it, whether you realize it or not. So
Wow, yeah, thank you for putting that in perspective. That's really helpful.
yeah,
So what was your biggest culture shock moment when you first got to the US?
man. I was, to be honest, like I specifically remember when we landed in Brooklyn Airport, and I was like, man, there's a lot of white people here. uh, Not saying that there weren't any white people in Cameroon, but it was like you go from a lot of black people, less white people, to now more white people, less black people. So like that, to me, that was the biggest shock to me. And but the thing was like it just seemed like when I first, landing at the airport, it just seemed like everybody was like friendly though. I don't know why, because like I'm just walking, and we're going to the car, and it's just I felt like people were like just looking at me and smiling. Like I even remember this one lady, she even waved at me and smiled, and I'm like, okay.
Do I know you?
Yeah. So I just kind of waved back and just kept walking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool. Okay, so the
the change of
friendliness and
people,
yeah.
yeah, it
Okay.
was just the change of people was
Yeah.
a shock to me.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. And when we were talking before the interview, you shared a little bit about sort of being made fun of when you
Uh,
first got out here and how that sort of led you into silence. Um, how did that show up like in your life over time? Like, now as an adult looking back.
yeah. As an adult now, when I first came here, it traumatized me, and so I kept like a vow of silence for many years because now it was implanted in my mind that what I felt, what I said, and what I thought did not matter. And as an adult now, I'm actually in the process of still having to trying to put myself out there more and just expressing how I feel because I realized that it matters. And that's like one of the biggest reasons why I do music. It's just to show my expression, because growing up here and having that vow of silence, people didn't understand me. You know what I mean? And like when I did speak or when I did say something, it was like, I don't really get him. I don't really understand him. But like now as a man, it's like, okay, with me having to just express myself even more, people are getting to really know who I am and really see, the type of mindset and type of heart that I have.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about your musical journey. So, how did music become sort of like the place where you finally allowed yourself to speak? And when did it shift from just being like an outlet to a real pursuit for you?
So I started doing music back in high school, and I had realized that the type of music that I was making, it didn't really gravitate to the people around me, and so I just kept doing music in secret and in private, and only for my ears to listen. And so when I decided to start doing putting music out publicly, it was only about 4 years ago, 2022, when I actually made that decision to put my music out publicly. And that was based on just having to come to realize what my purpose in life was. And so at that time, I was having to go through depression, I was having issues with my relationship. I mean, it just felt like life for me was just going downhill and I had no sense of meaning, no sense of purpose. And during that state that I was in, I just happened to find myself, reflecting on everything in life that I had been through since Cameroon, growing up here, just everything that I had been through in my life. And in that process, I ended up having like a vision and an awakening that made me realize that music was the tool for me to use to fulfill my purpose, to express, my feelings, to express my experience, and give people wisdom that might be going through the same situations. Even though like I have my own personal story and things that I've been through, but some way somehow everybody is going to go through a struggle. Is going to have to face certain things in their life, and some people don't have you know that person to be next to them to tell them that it's going to be okay. Just stick to being who you are. Just keep going, just keep trying to better yourself in life and just be yourself. So with me having to do music, I feel like I'm spreading a message of morality and self-reflection during a time right now that the world needs it.
And what type of music do you focus on?
Rap, hip hop with a blending of pop.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
And so, specifically in that genre, well, arguably music in general, but specifically in that genre, it seems culturally there is a sort of image that comes to mind
Yeah.
with certain performers. And so I guess how do you balance like sticking to the authentic version of yourself and focusing on the content of your lyrics and the quality versus trying to live up to an image of what you think that should be to be successful in that industry?
So you know, currently right now I work as a club manager, work with kids, I implement that in my music. You know, I tell what I'm having to face in my life. I put that in my music, you know, and I also put, you know, the fact that I went to school. I deal with struggles. I deal with stress. I deal with my kids. I deal with just things in life. All of that, you know, I put in my music to let people know that, you know what I mean? Some of these things that a lot of these artists talk about is fabricated. You know, being real. They're just trying to pretty much just sell themselves to gain, you know, some type of revenue to stay relevant. Whereas me, you know, I don't want to do that because for the simple fact that I'm not going to be fulfilling my purpose if I was to do that. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
yeah. So you know, a lot of artists like they're like even though they have a passion for making music, like they want the fame, they want the money, they want the attention. Whereas me, like I honestly do not care. Like I'm really focused on having to fulfill my purpose. If that means that I'm not gonna make any money from this, I honestly do not care because it's to me it's about impacting the people that need it during times like this.
Mm. Who are some of the artists that influence your storytelling method in music and rap?
You're about to laugh when I say this because these are completely two different types of artists. Um, First, I'll say my favorite artist of all time who actually has a big influence on my music is Phil Collins. But my
Okay.
favorite rapper, my favorite rapper is Jadakiss.
Interesting. Please explain both of those.
no, no correlation. It's like you know,
But that's the beauty of music then, right? It's
yeah,
complex.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So yeah, walk me through those choices.
So reason why Phil Collins, because Phil Collins is actually the first one, like the first people I want to say that I actually remember, like since a baby. My mom used to play a lot of Phil Collins when I was a baby, and
Okay.
that's how I just grew up to, you know, being a Phil Collins fan. As for Jadakiss, it was more so like just like his style, his
Mm.
style, and just how he was, you know, he was witty with his words and how he just put his lyrics together. To me, it that attracted me because you know I'm a little witty myself, and you know I'm good at writing. So when I used to listen to Jadakiss and like doing assignments or writing a rap, I would think like, okay, how can I make this? How can I make this like sound good or come off like you know something that someone would be like, "Oh, that was nice." And I would listen to how Jadakiss would do it. I was like, okay. I need to try to do it that same way, but do it in my own type of style.
What would Jadakiss do?
Yeah.
That's so funny. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about the differences between African music, storytelling, and U.S.
Mm.
hip hop.
Okay, so music like hip hop now in Africa, like what's the hip hop scene in Africa now is totally different from how when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was staying in Cameroon, we listened more so to like dance music and like singers. So Afro beats and like rapping, like all like that really came after we had left. So I never got to experience that. And
Let me never.
so, you know, yeah. So when I came to America is when I picked up on hip hop and rap and R&B and you know other genres of music. So now when I see, you know, that how Afrobeats is like super popular in Africa. I'm like, man, I wish I was still back home in Cameroon, so I can actually implement that into my music now, because here in America there's not that much, I mean, Afrobeat artists. Like, everything is over there. Here is more like you're a rapper or a singer doing rock, you know, those type of, I mean, music. So it's like, I'm actually trying to work with, like, come in contact with, like, some of those Afrobeat artists back home.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
That'll
for
be an
sure.
interesting blend because again, you're focused more on the lyrical part, and when I think of Afro beats, I mean literally it's the dancing, right? It's the beat
Yeah,
itself.
yeah,
So those two together would complement each other.
yeah.
So I'm curious, going back a little bit when we talked about, the types of things you talk about in your music. Um, when you're reflecting on the moment you felt silence, like what were you trying to say through music that you felt you couldn't say out loud in any other context?
Just life in general, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just a lot of things that people go through in life. I've always wanted to tell, I mean, the real about life. Now, if I was speaking in, like, in a future tense, I wanted to just speak of how I imagine the future, but still be realistic about it. So I've always just wanted to give people, the realness and my perspective of what I thought and what I feel about life in general. Because what I've noticed is some people, like, when they talk about life, it's they pretty much try to, like, amplify it into, yeah, I was doing this, and it's not authentic. I mean, it's not authentic. They're just saying things to just be entertaining, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't really have to do that. You can be yourself. You can talk about, you know what, I mean, real things that are happening in life, and people will gravitate to that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
just it's to me, it's just all about being authentic and just being real. You don't need to. I mean, you don't need to be something that you're not.
Mm-hmm. What types of stories do you feel are missing in music right now?
The story of the average person, what the average
So
person
what's the
is
average? I
going
mean,
through.
because like the image that is out there is of the
Bills,
average person. You're right. I mean, like
the
the average
average person,
person.
you know, the average person deals with bills, going to work. If they have kids, having to take care of the kids. You know, just the middle class, pretty much the middle class citizens. I kind of feel like no one is talking about them, but they are the biggest consumers that are making you guys popular, that are making you guys rich. Everybody's
Mm-hmm.
not from the streets. That's really a small percentage of people. It's just so that how we get to market makes it seem like, oh, there's you know what I mean, like, it makes it seem like everybody can relate to the streets. Even people who listen to, like, that type of music, they can't relate to it. They're only listening to it because it's being programmed to them. It's being marketed to them. So they just end up liking it. But I've always felt like the stories of just the average person in this world, like, that's not being told. What
Mm-hmm.
people are having to deal with on a daily basis. No one is
Right.
talking about that.
Yeah. Fair. And so you mentioned that you work as a club manager at the Boys and Girls Club, and that's in the same
Yes.
community you grew up in, right?
Yes.
Okay, so like, yeah, what does that mean to
Mhm.
you now to be able to give back to that same community, and how does your role with like youth in general shape how you see your responsibility as an artist?
It means a lot to me because, again, growing up in this area, we didn't have, a place like this, and thank God I didn't like get in a lot of trouble, being involved in like a bunch of like just hood activities and street stuff along with my friends as kids. So with me here now in that same exact neighborhood, I feel, I actually know and see that I'm having an impact on these kids that stay around here. So it means a lot to me. And every single day when I come to work, it's like some memory about just this, this area just comes to me, and like I'm like, man, I've really came a long way. And for me to like just be here now as a club manager in the same community that I grew up in, like it's very, it's very special to me. And as far as like the music side, again, with me just wanting to inspire, motivate, and just guide people in his life, and the position that I'm holding as a club manager and an artist, they come together as one to service these kids and just put them on the right path to make better decisions that me or my friends have had to make in our lives.
Amazing, amazing. Um, and so as we start to wrap up a little bit, just talk to me in general about what does having a voice mean to you now?
I mean, it just shows, you know, the leadership that I've always had in me since I was younger. I actually kind of feel like if I would have said, certain things back when I was younger, I could have saved a lot of people, including myself. But me just having that vow of silence and thinking that what I thought, what I felt never mattered, it's just, I mean, now it's like, man, I wish I had this voice back then instead of now. But again, everything happens for a reason. And I'm a person that, me, where I'm at now, you know, in this world today, it's like, it's for a purpose. It's for a reason why I had, that awakening saying, hey, the world is getting way too bad. You need to wake up and go do something about it.
What do you hope young people hear in your music, especially those who feel invisible?
Be yourself. Be true to yourself. Do not do not try to follow any trend or be part of anything negative that's going on. Be yourself. I mean? Follow your own wave, be on your own wave, start your own trend, and let the right people gravitate towards you that is only going to elevate you to where you want to be.
I love that. It's so funny. It seems so simple, but why is it so hard to be yourself?
Yeah, it is. It is, especially when you have things like, the media and social media and everything, TV, where it's pretty much programming you, telling you to not really be yourself and to be like, if you want success, you got to be like this. You got to be like this person, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And so I like to end on a signature resolution question because this is the resolution room. So
Mhm.
if silence once protected you, but expression now frees you, what would you say to someone who's still afraid to speak their truth?
Overcome yourself. Sit with yourself and really, you know, have that discussion with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror, look yourself in the eyes, and just speak power into you.
Love it. Love it. So, Knox story reminds us that resilience doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like survival. Sometimes it looks like
Mhm.
silence. And sometimes, when the timing is right, it looks like music. Can you let everyone know where to follow
Yeah.
you in your work?
Yes. You can follow me on all platforms. I'm on IG, Facebook, TikTok. My music is on Spotify, Tidal, any streaming platform. You can find me there. I'm everywhere. You can, and that's Noc Beteck, Nocbeteck.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
If this conversation gave you something to reflect on, consider taking a moment to rate and subscribe. It helps more people find their way into these conversations. And if you're looking for a space to actually put this work into practice, you're invited to join the Resolution Society on the School Community platform. It's our space for real-time reflection, dialogue, support, and growth. If you'd like to bring a conversation like this into your organization or community, you can submit a speaking request. And if you prefer to start on your own, visit the Resolution Library for a collection of digital resources designed to help you put this into practice one step at a time. Access to our community, speaking requests, and online resources can be found at our website linked in the show notes. Until next time, keep building in the quiet because that's what will carry you forward.